Oh my goodness, we are so excited. Look, this animal apparently is having some issues about being left alone. So you're going to see me dealing with the little kitty cat a good bit. But speaking of that, I have a good friend. We have something in common. We both have the same kind of little tabby kitty. His is named Sophie. And those of you who have been to this amazing gentleman's studio in Greenville, you know, I'm talking about the one and only Chuck Gallagher. Now, I met Chuck many years ago, and the first thing I noticed about Chuck is he's probably one of the most generous individuals that I've ever known. And to go into his studio, he works with folks, he helps folks. But here's the biggie, he is a fantastic keynote speaker, fantastic. But he's gone into another part of the profession of speaking, and that is an educational part. Have you ever heard of AI? Well, Chuck is all over it. And boy, does he have some information to help all of us. So I'm going to bring him in. He is my buddy. I feel very blessed to have Chuck. Yay.
Hello, Jane.
Sophie must have known that my little kitty.
I think you came up here and stole my cat. I'm just telling you, those two cats put side by side, you could not tell the difference.
Isn't that the trick? I mean, do you have a diamond collar on Sophie?
Well,
like
no, Jane, that's for those of you that are in the exclusive club that have diamond collars. Sophie does not have that. I will admit, she's just plain like me. How's that?
Chuck, ain't nothing plain about you, sweetheart. But I will tell you, you have just been a real blessing to me and so many other folks. And I want you to tell people how you got into the business of speaking. I mean, I don't want to embarrass you. Are you blushing?
No, but I do kind of look pink. I'm just saying. I didn't make up for this.
No, don't even say. I have my exercise. You know, I'm funeralizing today.
I know.
My aunt, yeah, my sweet aunt of 92 passed away, and I'm supposed to speak and sing at her service. So I've been scrambling today, and that's why I kept pushing our time a little bit. So I ain't fixed up. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, you look lovely as always.
Oh, honey, I've been in my exercise class in this. But anyway, back to let's talk more about you. What's the old expression? Oh, y'all, I'm sick of talking about me. Why don't y'all talk about me?
Yeah, Jane. Okay. So really, that's what you want me to do is talk about you.
Yeah.
I totally understand. I get it.
Well, Chuck, I just cannot tell you the technology that you have and the education that you're sharing with people, helping them through this. But let's start at the very beginning. Tell folks how you got into the speaking profession.
Okay. Now I'm hearing the sound of music. Let's start at the very beginning. Very good
place to start. And Chuck and I always sing together. I mean, might not. Chuck's, you're a good singer too.
No, bless you. Bless your heart, dear. All right, so look, Jane, let's make this really simple to start the process. I started in college as a music major, voice major. They said, teach. I said, perform, teach, perform, teach, perform. Apparently, I had no talent, so I went into accounting.
No, you missed that whole part for me. You were a voice.
I was a voice major in college. I started as a voice major in college.
Did you go to Furman?
No, I did not. I went to Appalachian State University, otherwise known as UNC at Tweetsie. Okay. Now that we have that settled.
Okay.
So I went into accounting because I didn't want to be a poor, starving musician. Okay. Got out and eventually became a CPA. It took a long time to pass that test, but nonetheless, eventually became a CPA. And I found out something that I didn't really completely connect the dots with, but that was I was good at speaking. I was good at communicating. I was good at bringing in clients, probably sucked as a CPA because whether it balanced or not didn't really mean a whole lot to me, just to be candid.
Right.
But in total honesty, back in the late 80s, I was overextended and underfunded. I had too much debt. Okay. And so I was, as us Southern folks would say, robbing Peter to pay Paul. And my local banker, who used to send us lots of business, calls one day and he says, "You're 2 months behind in your house payment. Is there a problem?" And the truth was I was 2 months behind in my house payment. And of course, I kind of threw him off base a little bit and said, "Are you sure that payment hasn't been misapplied?" And I don't think so, but, and I got off the phone. And at that point, Jane, it was like, oh my gosh, I have got to figure out quickly, how do I get the money to be able to pay the house payment so that he never knows?
Right.
And I stole the money. Not proud of it. Let me be crystal clear. Dumb thing to do. But I stole the money, called it borrowing, and paid the house payment, and 3 months later paid it back. Okay. Well, good. Yay. But I did it again. And I paid it back. And it's kind of like speeding. You know, you get in your car, you need to go from point A to point B, like you've got to go to a funeral, right? You got to go from point A to point B. Maybe the traffic's a little heavy, whatever it happens to be. You're going to speed, and you're probably going to assume in your head, well, yeah, but as long as it's, you know, less than 10 miles over, I'm probably not going to get a ticket. And if you don't get a ticket, there's a good chance you'll do it again. And if you do it enough, it just becomes a pattern. So, late 80s, the pattern was Chuck created a Ponzi scheme. Didn't know what it was called. That's what it was called. But didn't know, just did it. Seemed intuitive. Thinking all the while, I'm going to earn more money and I'll eventually pay it back. Well, in 1990, the card was pulled from the house of cards, so to speak, and all of that collapsed, which included my career, which included my license as a CPA. I was functionally became nothing more than a liar and a thief. Now, here's the weird side to this story, okay? While I was a CPA, I taught continuing education courses to CPAs in 30 states. I would teach an 8-hour course on tax law. So I literally cut my teeth teaching tax law for 8 hours. And I know you're sitting there, I can see by the look on your face, you're thinking to yourself, how titillating that must be to sit in a class for 8 hours on tax law.
I'm not thinking that. I'm thinking how difficult it is to listen to your very nice story with the cat who's tearing up my clothes. Sorry.
Okay, that's good. This is really good. You're struggling with the cat.
And the microphone that he's been trying to, put his head on. But
well, yeah, of course.
Chuck, I'll have to digress and interrupt because it's hard for me to see you in this role. But I know it happened, because you're just about the most honest, nice, giving, philanthropic person I've ever met. And for even to fathom that you got caught up in this trap. And listen, you are one of many, and definitely people do. It's like the frog in the water type thing. You don't realize it until that day it starts to boil. And I'm sure it boiled. So go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's quite all right. I'm going to make it, again, fairly short. I went to the people I stole money from and said, do you want me in prison or pay you back with interest? And they didn't like me, but they said, pay me back. And with the help of family and friends, I did. The local district attorney by that point lost your license, lost the interest in the partnership, sold your house, sold all your assets, paid everybody back. There's just no more blood in this turnip to squeeze. I don't want to prosecute. But the federal government did, because I had too much national notoriety. I testified before Congress on the House Ways and Means Committee on tax law. So it was like, okay, no. Too much national notoriety. So I ended up pleading guilty to embezzlement and tax evasion. Tax evasion is for failing to pay tax on stolen money, which quite frankly never quite crossed my mind. I mean, I just wouldn't think of putting that on a tax return. Anyway.
Right.
The penalty for that was on October 2nd, 1995, I took 23 steps into federal prison. Became 11642058. That was my inmate account number, and spent my time there. And Jane, let me say, prison sucked. Pardon the way I put it, but probably other ways to put it, but it sucked. But I will also say probably the best thing that ever happened to me.
Right. Yeah.
I learned more there than I would have ever learned outside, not only about other people, but about myself.
Yeah.
Now,
makes sense.
Getting out, it was like, well, what are you going to do? Mom always said death and taxes, totally screwed up taxes. So I figured the only job I could get was selling cemetery property door to door. So I was your cemetery property salesperson. You know, knock on the Herlong door. Hey, you know, at some point in time, you're going to have a place to be laid to rest. Would you like to talk with me? And most people would say no, but occasionally someone would say yes. And in the South, if they invited you in and offered you sweet tea, it was on. So and if anybody would know that, you would know that.
I do know that. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Firefly tea is pretty good too when stuff gets rough and doesn't rock and roll quite well. Add a little spirit to it. So how long did you serve?
Well, I was active for 18 months. I had 3 years probation. And when I got out, I was selling cemetery property. I was good at it. I got promoted to being a manager at a location in Raleigh, North Carolina. We became a top performing location. They asked, could I do more? And I said, yes. And a decade later, I was a senior VP of sales and marketing in a public company. And
Wow.
I'll never forget the question. Somebody said, well, how can you be a senior VP in a public company and a convicted felon? And
Yeah.
I just off the cuff said, every choice has a consequence. Made dumb choices in the 80s, put me into federal prison in the 90s. Made better choices in the 90s, made me a senior VP in the mid 2000s. And they said, you ought to speak on that. And that started my speaking career as you know it today.
Well, you might not want to tell the story, but it is close to Christmas. Can you tell your Santa Claus story?
Oh, yeah. So the one thing that I will say, Jane's probably heard some of the stories, so some of them we probably won't repeat, but some of the stories are kind of funny at Christmas. So I go in October, and now we're going to Christmas Day, and I am in my heart kind of devastated. I mean, this is the first time I have not been on Christmas morning with my children since they were born. And on this Christmas morning, I'm going to be sitting in federal prison. So I decided a couple of months in advance, with a little bit of money that people would send from time to time for a commissary account. It's a little store they have, that I was going to do whatever I could do to make Christmas normal. So I started buying little gifts. It might be a package of ramen noodles or a can of tuna or a pen or socks or whatever. I mean, just little stuff from the commissary. And there were 48 units or 48 cells, 48 people in the unit where we were incarcerated. Well, by Christmas, I had gotten enough for half the unit. So I had 24 gifts, and I'd gotten some paper and just newspaper and kind of wrapped it up as a gift. And it was like, wow, I only got enough for half. So the half that I was in, I decided on Christmas night, early Christmas morning at 3 a.m. when everybody's laying in bed, snoring away and other bodily functions that you could hear, I would steal out of bed, get my 24 gifts, and put those gifts on the little desk for all of the people on my side. And it said, from Santa. And I even put one in my unit so nobody would know who Santa was.
Mm-hmm.
So half the unit had gifts. So it's about 5:30 a.m. and somebody wakes up and I hear some rustling and hear some paper moving and said, Santa done been to our unit. And I was like, oh no, here it starts. And the next thing I know, this is awesome. Look, what did you get? I got a can of tuna. I got some ramen noodles. Santa Claus doesn't come. Well, the people on the other side of the unit, because it was only separated by about a 4-foot cinder block wall or so, said, what y'all talking about? And our side said, well, Santa Claus done came. And the people on the other side, what you talking about? And they held up their gifts because Santa Claus came. And the people over there says, we didn't get anything. And they all started finding out, I didn't get nothing. Says Santa Claus didn't come to us. And on our side, it says, because y'all been bad. We've been good. That's how come we got gifts. And it was priceless. It was one of those moments where, as bad as it was, It was a funny Christmas morning. And at least for half of the people, they had something they never expected, which created a memory for them that, you know, they probably will never forget, because probably won't ever happen again. But I got joy out of that. There's joy in giving.
Did you fess up Santa, or did you keep it under wraps?
Well, I tried to keep it under wraps. A few people started suspecting, and I think my roommate, his name was Buck. I'm Chuck. We were Buck and Chuck. He might have outed me after a while, but you know, I tried to keep it kind of down low, because I didn't want the other 24 people to beat up on me.
Well, and also, this is such a sweet story, and I you know, you were right. It's the best worst thing that ever happens, because it created a whole incredible career that you've been so successful, and you're so generous to help out, like our local national speakers chapter, and so many speakers. But also tell us about A Twice Adopted. I love that. I think, is that the name of it, or do you have the book cover?
The new book that's written now in edit process is called Adopted Twice. But okay, so when I was born, I mean, you know, like born.
Should I cover my kitty's ears? Is this going to be rough?
No, I won't give you anything that your kitty can't handle. Okay. But when I was born, my mother was 19. She was unwed. My father was wed. I was illegitimate. And her father told her, he said, you know, you either keep the little kid and you're out of the family, out, never to come back, or put him up for adoption. But he ain't going to be in our family. So at birth, I was adopted. Now, Jane, I was adopted to a wonderful, wonderful mother and father. People that loved me, cherished me, could not have asked for better. My dad died when I was 2 from diabetic complications, but it was a great childhood. It was great to be wanted. But by the time I was 27 years old, before my first son was born, I was sitting there thinking, you know, I'd kind of like to know biologically who I am. Who am I? Mm-hmm. And now you and I have lived long enough to know that 23andMe didn't exist back in the 80s. Okay. Mm-hmm. So 27 years old, I decided I need to find out. So I called the diocese through whom Episcopal diocese through who I was adopted. And they said, we quit doing that in 59. We don't have any records. And eventually I found a judge that was sympathetic to adoptee children. He said, I'll open the records for you. Wow. And that's great. I wanted to know biologically what made me tick. Frankly, I wanted to know if I was going to keep my hair, because I used to have a 4-head. It's gone to 5-head, 6-head, 7-head. It just keeps sliding back. It's very sad, but anyway. But the only thing in the records were mother's name, birth date, birthplace, father's name, birth date, birthplace. That's it. And it was like, oh, man. Well, let me see. Can I find them? In 6 hours, I found both of them.
No.
6 hours.
That's wonderful.
So with my biological mother, I turned out to be her only child ever.
Oh, wow.
Now, I was the only child for my adopted mother. Mm-hmm. Okay. So when I found my biological mother, she wanted to see if there maybe is a possibility of a relationship. And I'm kind of the spitting image of this woman. And so we developed a wonderful relationship, such that when and I use this term so people make sense, when my adopted mother died at my age of 47, my biological mother looks and she says, you know, you have no legal standing in my life. I mean, I gave birth to you, but by putting you up for adoption, you're no more than a stranger at Walmart. Mm-hmm. Would you be willing to be readopted?
Oh, Chuck.
So at the age of 47, I walk into the courtroom with my biological mother, who was 19 years older than me at the time. And when the judge said, and where is the child? I raised my hand, which for the poor judge, he pulls his glasses down on his nose and looks, and he's like, what? But so I have been adopted twice. Now, I'll say this just for the sheer joy of it. I was an only child twice, with my adopted mother and my biological mother. Turns out both mothers during their lifetime had 4 marriages each. So I could have had 4 daddies on adopted mama's side. I could have had 4 daddies on my biological mother's side. Didn't know any of them. Could have had one daddy that was biological daddy, but didn't know him either. So I could have had 9 daddies, but I had no daddies but 2 mamas and an only child twice. So when people ask me, why is he so messed up? Y'all, I came from a dysfunctional family. I'm just going to tell you on the front side. A lot of love, but
Oh, I have a friend that discovered his biological family as well. And he's a very professional, very dapper, was adopted by the most wonderful people. And as he was sharing that he found his family, I probably shouldn't have said this, but I looked at him, I said, God is merciful, because they are very different.
Well,
in fact, really, it was a blessing in
yeah.
his life, because he was able to do incredible things with great opportunities. And there were lots of siblings. And the story is very sweet. But you know how God works. I mean,
Absolutely.
seriously, what a blessing for you. So now, are any of these folks still with us on earth, or have they departed?
No, all of them at this point. My biological mother died in 2017, so they've all departed, which sad on that end, and also sad that as I look above me to heaven, there's nobody before ahead of me. So it's like, oh, I'm the next to go. And being in the funeral business, you get reminded of that kind of often. But they're gone. I will tell you, Jane, DNA is amazing. When I was 27, I was a CPA, and I just gotten my pilot's license. And when I found my biological parents, my mother was in insurance and finance, and my father was a pilot. And it was like,
No way, no way. That
that's
is
strange.
so beautiful. I
Yep.
love that. Oh my gosh. So you have taken your mess, let's just say,
Yep.
and made it your message.
Yep.
And
Message
it's
became
very
message.
cathartic. And how many people in your audience reach out to you and say, goodness, I've been adopted, or maybe, I've had some trouble too. Thank you so much for sharing your story. How often do you get that? I'm just curious.
Actually, Jane, all the time. In fact, when I first started speaking, I'll never forget, I attribute all of this to a wonderful lady by the name of Betty Garrett, Garrett Speakers International.
Oh, Betty, yes, from Texas.
And Betty said to me, because she listened, she was kind enough to listen to me as I was first getting started. And she said, okay, I get it. However, people don't care about exactly what you did and how you did it. They care about emotionally, how did it impact you and your family and the people around you, which was
That's right.
really powerful, because emotion connects. So when I finish a speech, what happens is people will come up and say, but for the grace of God go I, or my brother is incarcerated, or I wish my son had your book, and it's always something that is emotionally connecting. It is not what I did, it's what happened as a result of it and how it impacted other people.
Yeah. What's the name of your first book? 'Cause I'll put a little banner and put all this information
Yeah,
for
first
folks.
book is entitled Second Chances.
Second Chances.
Second Chances. And it's fascinating to me, because occasionally I will get calls from a detention center or a prison. And I know if I'm getting a collect call from a prison, it's obviously an inmate. And I will always take those calls. And I've been fascinated to find that somehow, and I don't know how, but the book has ended up in prison. And because I've been willing to put my contact information in, I'll get calls from somebody, I'm 3 months away from being released. How do I find my second chance? And that's one of those blessings that it doesn't make any difference what the book sales are. It is the fact that it's out there and that people can get that, and it can offer something of value. That to me is worth all of it.
Yes, giving people hope.
Yep.
And people absolutely need hope. And when nobody understands the hopelessness of that situation until they walk, and there are many, many, many people that have it's been shocking. We have a situation in my family, and my problem with sadly, my oldest sibling. And, I've been so concerned about his future, but, that's long arms that you have to touch people that need to hear, hey, you know what? if I can change my lifestyle and my way of thinking, and yes, I did get incarcerated, but if I can flip my life, what's the old thing now? Do the hokey pokey, flip it around and find a way to serve. And that's what I look at you, Chuck. You're just a really great servant. And it means a lot to a lot of us. And speaking of that, I'm segueing into your new and most interesting and educational thing. And I remember you and I were sitting in your studio and I did all the 170 shorts.
Yep. Sure did.
And we're throwing them up on Instagram. I'll probably put one in the front of this video just for fun. But it was such a joy to be in your studio. It's so much fun. You've got great people working there. But you and I sat down and you showed me, you said, I want you to see the power of AI, artificial intelligence. And you said, look at this video I'm doing for you. You did a great demo for me. And you said, I need an old farmhouse. And all of a sudden it went poof. And then you said, well, I need 2 older women sitting on the porch. Poof. I mean, I'm going, oh my gosh. Now that was way back. Since then, things have exploded for you. Every time I go on Facebook, I'll say, hi, I'm in Montana. I'm helping a corporation understand artificial intelligence. Now I'm in New York. I've been watching you educate and help people understand what AI is all about. So you take it away and let's talk about that.
Okay. So I'm going to do something a little weird with this. Let me think about this for a second. 1977, I'm in finance class at Appalachian State University. And the guy walks in and we have our book. And he puts the book down on the desk, kind of boom, bluntly, and he said, there's 2 ways to pass this class. He said, one way is take this book and learn the formulas, future value, present value, how to calculate a monthly payment, blah, blah, blah. Learn the formulas, put the numbers in, you'll be fine. Or go out and buy a Texas Instrument Business Analyst 2. It was a brand new calculator at the time, would do all that stuff. And here's what he said. He said, I, your teacher, don't care how you get the answer. I care that you get the answer. So calculator's a tool, book is a tool, pick the tool you want to use. And it was like, okay, I'll buy the calculator. I like easy. Okay. So the reason I say that is in 93, Netscape came out and it connected all of us, you and me and the rest of the world, to the internet. We didn't know what the internet was until then. And it took a while for us to kind of get connected, but everybody today, including you and me on StreamYard, are connected via the internet, and we take it for granted. Well, November 30, 2022 was when OpenAI said, we're making available to the mere mortals of the world this thing called ChatGPT. And I didn't pay any attention to it until January of 2023. And Ford Sakes came up and he said, you need to see this. And I looked at it and it was like, this is remarkable because it's a tool. Instead of me having to go out and search Google and try to find an answer, kind of like going to the library and piecing this and so forth together, it basically does that, it pieces it together and provides solutions or answers. So I thought, I like tech. But more importantly, I like to understand how can it make my life easier. So I decided, what the heck? I'm just going to start playing with it and try to figure it out. Mostly, Jane, for me, because I just wanted to figure it out. I just wanted to see what would work. And I started using it. It was like, this is easy. I need to teach other people how to do this.
And not fear it. And I know there's a dark side to people that could use AI in not a good way, but this is what I wanted you to address, that you started out with just in your own world, and you've helped me with it, and so continue.
Well, and the fear thing, that's really interesting. Okay, let me just say this for a second. What AI is nothing more than a tool. It's a tool that instead of having it to do the old-fashioned way, does it faster for you. Now, what is it? Well, it might write content for you. It might research something for you. It might help you with an answer to a question quicker. Like I'll
Right.
give you a simple example. I was working with a speaker friend who needed a video that had to be 50 minutes long, 50,
Mhm.
50. When we finished and cut out all the flubs, it was 45 minutes and 24 seconds, and they were gone. Right. And it was like, holy crap, we are short 4 minutes. What are we going to do? And the question was, well, we could slow it down a little bit to stretch 45 to 50. That would be okay. How much do we need to slow it down? So I went to Google and said, I've got a video that's 45 minutes and 24 seconds. How much do I need to slow it down in order to be able to get it to 50 minutes? And it gave me all of these mathematical formulas. And I'm like, look at me. Do I look like a mathematician? I used to be an accountant. I wasn't a good one. I was a good speaker and not a good accountant. Okay. So I can't do the math.
Yeah.
And I went to Chat GPT and I said, I've got a video that is 45 minutes and 24 seconds. I need it to be 50 minutes. What percentage do I need to slow it down to stretch it out? And all of a sudden on the screen are all these mathematical formulas going, and it was going through it. And then at the end, it said 90.24. What? It gave me the answer. So now, Jane, you'll probably appreciate this. You've been to the studio, so you know the guys here. I went into the guy that was doing the editing and I said, why don't you slow it down to 90.24? He said, how do you know that? I said, didn't you take math in college?
You
I
a
didn't
bad
tell him where I got the answer, but he slowed it to 90.24, and of course it was exactly 50 minutes. Now, the point was, it's a tool.
Yeah.
The genie's out of the bottle. The tool is out there. You can use the tool for good or bad, but that's true with any tool. You drive an automobile. So do I. An automobile is a tool. Yay. It gets us from point A to point B quickly. We get there a whole lot faster than we would if it was like 1893 on a horse and buggy. But you could also take an automobile and drive it into a crowd of protesters and kill people. So is the automobile bad, or is the person using it got good intentions or bad intentions?
To boil it down a little bit, we are renovating a bathroom. And no, every time I get on one of these Zoom calls, I keep talking about our bathroom. It's slow but sure. But I had the gentleman contractor sent me a text message and said, so do you want gloss? You want it flat? He said eggshell, which I've never heard of, semi-gloss. What do you want? So I got in Chat GPT and I said, I'm renovating a bathroom. What's the best kind of paint sheen to have? Is it better for glossy, semi-gloss? And I just kept asking questions. And so it said, oh, you can do gloss or semi-gloss, you know? So, and another thing I used it for, I mean, you know, I'm working on this novel, which I've got a 2-year option for the film that I told you about.
Yep.
Well, I got the contract from the, I got the contract and I thought I read it and it was gobbledygook. And I'm going, I don't get this. So I put it in Chat GPT and I said, can you please tell me what this means? Can you translate it? And then I read the translation. Now I didn't just simply go by that. And that's a point right there, because a lot of people are saying, write me a story about, you know, and I mean, this is probably bad to say, even I'm supposed to do a short eulogy for my aunt in a couple of days. Well, I wrote a eulogy and I put it in Chat GPT and I said, can you make this more heartwarming? And excuse me.
And the cat gets moved.
And it came up with some beautiful verbiage. Now, I'm not going to use that, but it's food for my thought process. So I'll use some of it because it coined something that I couldn't quite say.
Right.
I thought I needed it. That I take a sentence and go, can you make this a little stronger? Can you make this funny? Can you make this compelling, heartwarming? And then another thing I've learned to do, remove the adjectives and adverbs. Now that's just Chat GPT simple stuff. What you've now gone into is deeper, even with the audio book and what's happened with that you told me about that tool. What's the name of that tool, Chuck?
11 Labs. So 11 Labs is a voice synthesis tool. Okay. In other words, it will take your voice and replicate it. Okay.
And that's has been a problem too, you know, for some people.
Right.
You're hearing about that.
So use it for good, use it for bad.
Use it for good.
Okay? It's a tool.
Right.
So I went in and said, gosh, I'm curious about this. That's kind of, I just like playing with it to see what happens. So I went in and read 3 or 4 paragraphs out of Second Chances. And I read it into the tool. And then I read it again because I wanted to add a little more oomph to it. Because sometimes reading a book just sounds like reading a book. It doesn't sound like you and I talking. And then I did it again. And I said, okay, now synthesize my voice. And what happened was I brought one. It was like, holy crap, that sounds like me. So I brought one of the guys in and set him down so he couldn't see what I was doing. And I said, listen, I've got something recorded here. I want you to listen to it. Something seems a little off. And I just a paragraph of text, and I just put the paragraph of text in, and it read it out loud. And he said, I don't know, sounds pretty good to me. He said, I don't hear what you're listening for. I said, well, listen carefully. I mean, something just doesn't seem quite like me. I mean, I think I'm a little off here. And it read it again. And I said, what do you think? He said, I don't know what you're after. He said, are you punking me? Because he thought I'd pull people's legs. I mean, it's just my nature. And it was like, he did not recognize it wasn't my voice, that it was a synthesized voice. Well, then the question is, well, why would you do that? Well, the answer is simple. I have a brand new book that just came out called Monday Morning Ethics. It's really about sports history and how it would be changed if people had not made unethical choices. So I could read the book and create an audio book, or I can just put the Word document of the book in and let it, in my voice, read the book. It will never get tired. It will always pronounce the consonants. It's in my voice. There'll be no lip pops or smacks or sneezes or things to edit out. And it's like, why would I not use that tool to be able to create something? Because otherwise it would take me 8 to 12 hours to probably read the book, when in reality, it will produce it. And the simplicity of doing it just makes it easy.
Well, I love that. Is that the coolest AI tool that you have found?
No, I'll tell you the coolest one I found so far. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff out there. I'm going to quickly say this. The music that we create for videos that we produce, most of which now is created by AI. We just go in and tell it what the mood is, what the feel is, what length we need, and it will create it for us, which means I am never infringing on somebody else's material because it's just computer generated. Okay. Sounds great.
What tool is that, Chuck? What AI tool is that?
Sound Draw. A lot of the images, like the one that you were talking about for the 2 old ladies that were sitting on the porch, I use Midjourney for. So most of the images now that come out that are connected to my blogs or whatever are AI generated. So I don't have to now go buy images. I can let AI create it. But the one that I think right this moment, well, I don't know, there's 2. I'm going to call it, this is a tie. One is called Designer, Designrr. Everybody spells stuff weird now, okay? But Designer. And Designer basically will write a book for you. Now, Jane, let me be crystal clear. It is not an emotional book. It's not going to replace you or me with Second Chances or John Grisham or Stephen King. It's not that. But if you were writing, like, for example, the first book I wrote with Designer was How to Prevent Fraud in a Small Business. It will never be a bestseller. But in terms of content, technical content, accurate content, it's wonderful. So I went in and I said, I want to write a book, how to prevent fraud in a small business. Here's what I'm looking at. Here are some keywords, et cetera, et cetera. Create it. Had a thing called Word Genie. Hit the button. 3 hours later, it wrote a 110-page book. It wrote the book. It put pictures in the book. It formatted the book. It was like, elf on a shelf, book in a can. I mean, it just, boom, there it was. I took the content, I read it, I put it into Grammarly. I just wanted to make sure that I was comfortable with it. I put a few examples in from time to time to Chuck Isaac, but I promise you, 5% of it was me, 95% was AI. Okay. Now, some people would be like, well, you didn't write a book. Well, okay. Okay, I didn't write a book. But here's the reality. When I finished it, I hit, yep, I'm good with it. And it immediately distributed it to all of the platforms. So now if you go to iLibrary with Apple and you look up Chuck Gallagher books, one of my books is How to Prevent Fraud in Small Businesses. It is an ebook. And what I've done with it is made sure that I'm giving it away to the people in my database, because it's like, I believe if you've got a tool that will help you prevent fraud, yay. It is not about me making money. It's about me sharing information. It just made sharing it easier.
So I'm hearing this too, though. I'm hearing what a lot of people are doing to make it more, quote, ethical, and they feel better about it. You read the whole thing.
Yep.
You added examples. You made it your voice. See, a lot of people aren't going in and editing it so it's theirs, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'll write something, I'll put it in, and I've got whole documents, and I'll say AI generated, and I'll either strike through. I'll say, oh, I like that line. Oh, I like that line. Oh, that's great. I could never think of this on my own. Right. And so that's kind of how, but what you've done too, just taking it to the next level with this AI genie, and goodness knows what else is going to be out there. Now, you've been traveling and you've been sharing this with associations and corporations. So tell us a little bit about that and how people can get in touch with you if they're interested in having you speak to their organization on AI and all the information along with that. I think it's fascinating. I think it's wonderful.
Well, what happened, Jane, was because I'm known as an ethics speaker. The question came up about ethics and AI and so forth. Okay, I get that. That makes perfect sense. But then someone said, well, we just want to know how it works. We just don't understand it. All right. Now, look, you're in the Speaker Hall of Fame. You are amazing on a stage. So I promise you, you are. But I promise you, you could go into any audience and you could carry on a conversation about something you understand, and that audience would be pleased. So I said, for me, all right, I understand the ethical implications, but I'm playing with this. I'm using it. I've got practical experience. So when I step on the stage, I am going to show you how it works. I'm not going to talk to you about theory. It's like, let's do it live. Now,
how about that? How do you do that, Chuck?
Well, it's okay. I'm going to say this and be funny. It's easy. I mean, it's live, right? I don't know what it's going to do, but that's part of the fun of it. It's like, okay, good.
Oh, yeah.
So you're in South Carolina. I'm in South Carolina. So South Carolina has a lot of smaller, not municipalities, but smaller utility providers. You know, the local water provider, the whatever. You get the idea. So I was doing this utility group, and I said to them, I said, okay, we're going to get started with this. What is one of the problems you have you'd like to know an answer to? And this one guy, he thought he was being smart. He said, we've got a problem with squirrels on the power lines. And everybody laughed. So I went into ChatGPT and I said, all right, great. Now we're with a local municipality that has problems with squirrels on the power lines. Give us an example of probably 5 solutions to how we can eliminate that problem. And ChatGPT's and these people are like, holy crap, that's good stuff.
So logistically speaking, do you just you're connected to the internet, you're on ChatGPT, and you just type it in on the stage, and
it shows up on the screen.
Oh, and my gosh.
We're doing it live.
That's gold. That's gold.
The thing that people like about it is the fact that they didn't have the guts to try it, but they're in a meeting and they're seeing it. Now, one of the things, Jane, you'll appreciate this, but one of the things it said for the squirrel on the power line is spray it with fox urine. Okay. Now people are laughing at that. It's like, oh my God, how would we hire somebody to do that? And I said, well, why don't we write a job description for that? So we write a job description. Jane, I'm going to tell you, the job description that those people saw, they were like, crap, I might apply for that. That sounds really good. So they got to see the fact that not only can you identify problems and solutions, but you can try to find ways to solve those problems. And my point for all of them is get over your fear. It is a tool. It's
and it's here to stay.
It ain't going anywhere. It's
No,
2023.
everybody wants Mo.
Yeah, we've seen this. In 2025, 2030, your life and my life will be dramatically different because the old way, it's like the difference between you and me going to college would look for, go to the library to try to look up material to write a paper. Our children would go online to look up material. Now you don't have to worry about it. You basically are going to use AI to pull it together for you more quickly, which means, like you said, you've seen phrases you never would have thought of. I have seen things in articles I never would have thought of, but it was like, holy crap, that's cool, which means I'm learning. I'm 66 and I am learning from this in ways that I never would have thought of. So when you embrace the idea that it's a tool that's here to stay, you'll either be left behind or you'll ride the wave of where this is going to go. And it is going to be amazing.
Well, I mean, just like last week, I did my newsletter and I was trying to think of something clever to put in there, some alliteration. You can ask it for alliteration.
Oh, yeah.
And it was about, I got really sick Christmas Eve. And I'll never forget that. And I remember my mother was there and I was 11 years old. And I wrote about, it was a little more serious newsletter. I normally do funny. But I said, I happened to look out of the window at Roper Hospital and they had a live nativity scene. And I remember for the first time, the meaning of family and faith and friends meant so much to me because I had had a relapse and I was so sick and had to have all those IV fluids on Christmas Eve. Well, I put in my request to Santa, a pink banana seat bicycle. That's all I wanted was my pink banana seat bicycle. I said, boy, that got shoved way down the list because I was so sick. Yeah. And so what did AI come up with? Biking to Bethlehem.
Oh,
I could have never come up with biking to Bethlehem. Really.
Yeah.
So when you think about it, we have to use it intelligently. And I know there are people out there that are going to abuse it. And there's probably going to be some government stuff stepping in. And I know a lot of people that work with like audio books. And this is what happened with the strike recently about writers, because you can write a script. You don't have to hire somebody. You don't have to go to ACX and find your perfect voice. So it is going to be a challenge for some of those folks who make their living this way. And Jay Baer, who everybody should be listening to that likes to market, and I've mentioned this to you, Jay Baer said, y'all get ready. People aren't going to go to Google and find us. They're going to go in AI. They're going to say, I need a speaker that is from the Southeast who's an AI expert, and your name better come up there.
Yep. Yep.
And as the more presence that you have on the web, because it's all web-based,
right? It's
all pulls from the web. Now, I've had people ask me this, Chuck. Once AI generates something for you, does it belong to AI, or is it yours, or how does that work?
Here's the thing, Jane. Today, there are lots of questions. Everything that you read, when you look at, the fine print of AI is, if I create it in AI, I own it. It becomes my content. Now, there are going to be those people out there that says, well, how do you know that? And the answer is you don't. So here's the question. Do you trust it or not? It's like, when you're driving your car that is full of all of kinds of electronics that in many cases might be observing exactly what you're doing. So you could say, I didn't run that red light, but your car actually knows whether you did or didn't. Do you therefore not buy a car because maybe it's monitoring what you're doing and might catch you in a lie? I don't know. I know that based upon everything I see, what I create, I own. And
let's face it, if I go on Google and I start searching for, I was searching for this novelty gift for my children to give money to them, and it's a funny little box open and explodes.
Yep.
And I'm getting 1,000 ads now of that same product from different people. Alexa's listening. I mean, all of this is intentional.
Yep.
And so AI is just part of it too.
Well, and Jane, you said a minute ago, like for the people that do voiceovers, it's like, oh, it's going to hurt my business. If it was me, I would clone my voice so that instead of having to take my 30 seconds or 5 minutes to do it, I could get much more material coming in, and my cloned voice, that is my voice, can produce it like that, which means I can now produce more than I ever would be able to if it was only me reading into this microphone. So we have to think differently about what we do. And when we think differently about it, we'll figure out how to really use the tool and maximize our benefits.
Well, that's very true. That's very true. So the corporations that you and associations, you've just been all over. I mean, your business has exploded because people are so interested in this new technology, and it's not to be feared. It's to be used respectfully. And yes, there will be some abuse. That's always the way it happens. I mean, how many times do we get scammed on the internet saying, oh, by the way, you need to give me your 5-digit blah, blah number because you've been hacked, and we have to dig a little bit in that. We all know how to find those hackers. So this is something that we're going to have to do intelligently. So Chuck, we're about wind down rather. What is a good, tell us a good way to get in touch with you, darling.
So look, one thing is easy. It's chuckgallagher.com. That's the website. And otherwise, my phone number is 828-244-1400. That's 828-244-1400. Operators, that's me, are standing by. And I welcome your call.
They're not AI bots.
It's not an AI bot. The one thing I would say for those people that are thinking about, maybe somebody in the family needs a second chance, I'm happy to talk with people because I think that's part of the pay it forward for people that have been in my life. And secondly, I'll say, Jane, and I really like this. Someone shared with me one day the statement, your history does not create your destiny.
Oh, I love that.
Regardless of what has happened in the past, the choices you make today define the life you live in the future. And I'm just one of those people that say, let's make those choices wisely.
Well, I love that, Chuck, because your whole career has been taking something that was a poor decision, but you haven't stayed in that poor decision. You've taken that and served other people. And just like it was just so dear to me just now talking about how do they get in touch? Well, here I am thinking about maybe an AI speaker or something, and you're thinking, let me help you. And that's just your heart. You have a big heart. So when I think of you, you're kind of a hybrid. Number one, you've got a story. Bring me into your organization and let me be your keynote speaker. Oh, and by the way, for those of you who need to know a little bit more about AI, I can do this breakout session for you. And by the way, if any of you have family members that you dearly love, and this time of year, it just seems to explode with thinking about, oh my goodness, whether we're thinking forward or reminiscing, we've got a situation. I wish I knew someone that my friend or my family member could talk to. So you come to me as a person that has 3 parts. And appreciate that so much. And then the generosity that you have helped so many of us in the speaking business and with this first class studio. And that's a whole nother part of your speaking and your career is opening your studio to help us produce really first class products and educational. How many of those have you done for speakers? Goodness. And people come in and stay overnight in Greenville. And you help them put those things in the form of digital training, digital education. So you come to us as a gift. There's no question about it. You're a gift.
Well,
and I appreciate you so much
for saying that. I appreciate that. I will tell you, we all have certain gifts in life. God infuses us with gifts. I like speaking. I like learning new things. I like being creative. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm living a charmed life at this point, and the past misdeeds created a foundation for something that is far more valuable to me than if I had never done that and was speaking about tax law today. Nothing wrong with that. But this is different, and it just puts me more in touch with why I'm here on this planet for the short time we're here.
That is very true. That's very well said, sweetheart. And I just thank you so much for spending this time with me and with all of our folks. Can't wait for this to air. And we'll give you a big virtual hug. Thank you, Chuck. And everything you do is so meaningful to so many. And I love you and I appreciate you as my friend and someone I turn to for help with video, audio, and just a fun guy to be around and my singing partner.
Well, there you go,
So
Jane. And
maybe
hey,
we should do the Carol Burnett. I'm so glad we've had this time together.
right.
Just to have her laugh. I don't even know what that meant. I think she was giving a signal to
She was
family.
giving a signal to somebody in the family, and oh yes,
I'll do 2 ears for you.
Hey,
Although
Jane,
you're not family, you're in my heart.
been a pleasure, and Merry Christmas to you and Sophie, or the Sophie lookalike, that AI clone you have of my cat.
That's another thing. We could clone Sophie, the Wonder Kitty. I've seen you hold that cat upside down, right side up, and she just she's just so happy.
Oh yeah, she doesn't care which way she's turned. She's just trying to be alive.
I wish my cat could meow because she sounds like a chain smoker. She goes, she's got allergies or something. And I was supposed to give her eye drops and she's about to kill me. I thought, well, you're going to have to live with that, sweetheart. Maybe we can find another way to help your little allergies.
Oh, too funny.
Thank you, sweetie. Big hug. Love you, bucket.